We're seeing that pay growth is indeed slowing, but it's not slowing as fast as it was last year. And if you are a new hire, in fact, if you have changed jobs over the last year, you're still seeing a pay bump that rivals what you saw in January. So we're getting some decline in wages, but it's not a free fall. It's a really slow decline in year-over-year wage growth.
I'm going to ask you a political question to get you in trouble with general counsel at ADP. The immigrants, when Stephanie Roth talks about immigration or you talk about immigration, are those legitimate tax-paying jobs where they're getting a check from someone like ADP?
If ADP sees them, then they are legitimate because we do the compliance, which is very important for every worker and for all of our more than 1 million businesses across the world. But yes, if we see the data, they are getting a tax record. And that's really important too because these jobs and the distribution of workers have changed dramatically over the past 4 years. Immigration is just one change in the overall distribution of the worker that we're seeing in the data.
So, Nela, we just been over the last few weeks seeing college graduations around the country here. What are college graduates doing here in terms of the labor force? Are there opportunities for these kids coming out of college these days? What's that part of the labor market look like?
Yeah, the opportunities are there, but they're not as prolific and they're not as easy to get. And that is a change from the last couple of years. We just put out a story in our quarterly report called Today at Work about software developers. Do you know, Paul, that there are fewer software developers employed now than there were in 2018? So for all those computer science majors who have heard about AI and Gen AI and the future of work, and it's all tech-based, there are fewer software developer jobs.
Do you have a why?
Well, we know a couple of things. It started before the pandemic, so software developer jobs peaked in 2019. We also know that the technology is going to a place where there's a lot of machine learning within it. So it's an industry that's been transformed. If you look at the tech sector, even last year, you saw headline layoffs. If you look at information sector, you see declines in pay that are stronger than the overall market. So I think this is a industry and occupation in transition. There are other occupations in transition, something we're watching, but it's interesting.
A lot of folks just in the last several years, I've heard more discussion of you don't have to go to college. You don't have to take on all that debt that's associated with college. You can go to a trade school because there's so much demand for those types of people, and the pay is very good. Are you seeing that in your numbers? How are you seeing that?
Well, we're looking in that closely because we want to know what Gen Z is doing. There are gaps.
Who's Gen Z? Is that Lisa Mateo?
Yeah, I forget. Thank you, Paul.
She looks like she's Gen Z.
Thank you.
Ken Fellio, our global technical director, Gen Z.
I don't think so.
I think it's 2010 is the end date for Gen Z.
You say so.
Well, my 16-year-old said so.
How are the trade schools doing?
Paul's
got that's a really good question.
Trade schools, I'm not sure, but trade gaps are very apparent. And it's been that way for a long time. So you're talking about your plumbers, electricians, anyone who's done any home remodeling over the past 5 years.
They're all making $800 an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Don't need a plumber urgently because you're going to see how much the pay gaps matter. And when we look at the data, we're seeing that there's an aging in this demographic. And that's important because new people aren't coming in at the same rate that older workers are retiring.
Why?
Well, I don't think the message has been broadly disseminated across young people. We are in an economy where you don't make stuff. You're digitized. I mean, my kids want to be an influencer when they grow up. I mean, that's the world we're living
Lisa
in.
Mateo.
So the idea of learning a trade, of doing something with your hands.
Like a real job is,
Yeah, it's not
we
as
had this
popular.
conversation this weekend at the dining room
Think
table.
about this. You get to set your own wages. You get to work for yourself. You get to set your own hours. You have a skill that is interest rate not cyclical. People will always need a plumber.
YouTube's lighting up like a candle with this discussion.
So there is something to it, for sure. The economy needs it.